Hey, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to read Mick Harte Was Here, chapter 8, and the chapter is titled Common Sense and Good Judgment. Yesterday, when we read Dogs Can Laugh in Heaven, we had reached the climax of the story, and so now we are moving into the falling action. So here we go. If you would like to follow along with me, you can pull up your PDF copy that I shared with you last week. All right, common sense and good judgment. 3 blocks from my house, there used to be a dangerous intersection. It was one of those intersections where it was impossible for cars to pull out into the main street without horns honking and brakes screeching and stuff. My father griped about it every time we drove through there. The city's not going to put a light in here until someone gets hurt, he'd say. You wait and see. It's going to take an accident before anything gets done. Last year, there were 4 accidents in 7 months, and they finally installed a traffic signal. The first time we drove through it, some guy ran a red light and Pop had to swerve out of the way to keep from hitting him. It scared us both to death. Pop swore at the guy, and then he started right in on this lecture about how you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It's a sad lesson, Phoebe, he said, but no matter how many traffic lights they put in, they'll never be able to make people use common sense and good judgment. As he was talking, he turned around to make sure I was paying attention, and while his head was turned, our car drifted into the next lane, and 2 cars blasted their horns at us. He made a quick recovery. It was close, though. It was also the end of the talk on good judgment and common sense. And the lesson I ended up learning that day was that even smart guys with chemistry degrees do stupid stuff once in a while. It's just that usually when they do stupid stuff, you luck out and get away with it. And if you luck out enough times, it's pretty easy to start believing that you're always going to luck out forever, I mean. Like, I can't even count how many soccer games I played in without shin guards before I finally got kicked in the leg and started wearing them. Over 30, I bet. And my mother had never had a major sunburn her whole entire life till she and Pop went to the beach for their anniversary last year. You can still see the blotchy patches where her skin peeled from all the blisters, by the way. And then there was Mick, who went 12 years and 5 months without ever falling off his bike. So he refused to wear a helmet. And it's the one thing about him that I've tried to forget and to give him for. And I'm sorry, but I can't seem to do either one. It was over a week before Mrs. Berryhill called me down to her office again. I was kind of nervous when I got her note. Even though I knew my parents had explained to her about me ditching school that day, part of me was still expecting detention, and that's why I was relieved to see another woman sitting in her office. When I walked in, Mrs. Berryhill introduced us. Her name was Mrs. Somebody or other from the PTA. She shook my hand and said how sincerely sorry she was about what happened to my brother. And then she started right in on how the PTA wanted to make sure that nothing like that ever happened again. So they were going to sponsor this big assembly on bike safety. It was already in the works, she said. There were going to be police officers and instructional videos and demonstrations of the latest safety gear, yada, yada, yada. We'd like to invite you to sit on stage with the other speakers, she told me. And then she took my hand again and asked if I thought maybe I could say a few words to my classmates about bicycle safety. Because a few words from me would have a tremendous impact, she thought. And through all of this, I just sort of sat there, staring at her in disbelief. Because I swear I could not figure out what planet this woman had come from. I mean, where in the world had she ever gotten the nerve to ask me something like that? Had it never dawned on her that the timing of a bicycle safety assembly was just a little off for me, and that maybe I would have liked to have seen a bicycle assembly before my brother was killed? It didn't make sense. I just stood up and took my hand away. I can't, I said. Then I turned to go. Mrs. Somebody or other fell all over herself, telling me how much she understood, which really killed me, by the way, because the woman didn't have a clue. I don't know when I changed my mind about speaking at the assembly. I think it was just one of those flip-flops you do sometimes. Like at first you have this gut reaction to something and you're positive that you're totally right. Only after a while it creeps into your mind that the other guy may actually have a point. And then the next thing you know, his point makes more sense than your point, which is totally annoying, but still, it happens. It used to happen with me and Mick all the time. Like a couple of months ago, we were arguing about whether the Three Stooges were funny or not. I kept saying they were hilarious, and Mick kept saying they were just morons. And then we started kind of wrestling around a little bit, and the next thing I know, Mick jumped up and started slapping the top of his head with his hand and fluttering it up and down in front of my face. And after that, he grabbed my nose with his fist. He twisted hard and finally slapped it away with his other hand. He ended his performance with the classic Three Stooges laugh, knock, 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 and quick move to boink my eyes out with his fingers. Fortunately, I was able to block it with my hand. Mick stopped the routine as fast as he had started. Then, without saying a word, he stood up real dignified like and dusted himself off. He looked at me without the trace of a smile. Hilarious, wasn't I? He said dryly. Yes, I lied. You were. But deep down, I had already started to feel different about the Stooges. There were 800 people in the gym when I walked to the microphone that morning. I wasn't nervous, though, which really surprised me, but I swear I felt almost relaxed when I set down the bag of stuff next to the podium. I'm Mick Harte's sister, I said, and then I bent down and I reached into my plastic bag. When Mick was in third grade, this is what my grandmother from Florida sent him for Christmas. I held it up. It's a glow-in-the-dark bow tie with pink flamingos on it. A couple of kids chuckled a little. Don't worry, I said. He never wore it. He said it made him look like a dork. There was more laughing then, and I reached into my bag again. When Mick was in fourth grade, my Aunt Marge sent him this from Michigan. I held up a hat in the shape of a trout. Mick said this one went beyond dork, all the way to doofus, I said. And this time, everybody really cracked up. Some of the kids in the first row even stood up and started craning their necks to see what I would pull out next. They watched as I turned the bag upside down and a cardboard box fell into the stage. Carefully, I set it on the podium and waited for everything to get totally quiet. When Mick turned 10, my parents gave him this for his birthday. I took my time opening the lid. I mean, you could really feel the anticipation and all. But when I finally pulled Mick's gift out of the box, still brand new, there was just this gasp. And no one laughed at all. No one even moved. This was my brother's bike helmet, I said. My voice broke, but somehow I forced myself to finish. He said it made him look like a dork. All right, and that concludes this chapter. Thanks for listening. Tomorrow we're going to read the conclusion, Forever.